So let's dive into a story that flows, quite literally, like a river through time. And this isn't really a story about the kings and queens who rose and fell. No, it's about the one thing that outlasted every single one of them, the Valley of Kashmir itself.
I mean, just think about it. Long before anyone even thought about drawing a map, long before the first crown was ever forged, this place was here, cradled by the Himalayas, just wrapped in mist. It wasn't a kingdom yet. It was a silent witness, just waiting for history to finally begin.
So here's the big idea we're starting with. The land itself is the main character of this story. The Valley of Kashmir, it holds the memory of every single ambition, every betrayal, and every fleeting moment of glory that's ever played out on its soil.
You see what's happening here, right? The landscape isn't just scenery. The mountains aren't just rocks. They're described as ancient guardians. And the river, it's not just water, it's the valley's lifeblood, a vein through its heart. This sets up the whole central conflict of the story, this permanent living geography versus the very temporary lives of the people who try to master it.
All right, let's rewind, all the way back to the very beginning, to the mythic origins of Kashmir. This is where the stage is literally set for the entire drama of human history to unfold.
It starts with this really simple but powerful idea. It just completely turns our understanding of this place on its head. Forget borders, forget cities, the story begins with an absence.
Can you picture it? Just an immense, primordial lake with the Himalayas as its shoreline. The legend even says a serpent spirit lived in its depths, a perfect symbol of that ancient, wild, untamed nature.
And then, this is the moment everything changes. It's not a conquest with an army, it's a transformation of reality itself. One single act of will that literally gives birth to a nation.
And the land that comes up from the water, it's not just dirt, it's sacred soil, just brimming with potential. But, with the dawn of civilization, a new and far more complicated force enters our story.
And this, right here, is the central conflict of the whole thing. It's not man versus nature, it's human ambition versus the nature of time itself. The moment people arrived, they started dreaming of forever, of dynasties and legacies that would never end. But, as we're about to find out, the valley, well, it had other plans.
Okay, so we're shifting gears now, leaving the myth behind and diving headfirst into the brutal reality of politics. This chapter zooms in on a classic story of how power doesn't just corrupt, it corrodes you from the inside out.
So you've got two totally different styles of power here. On one hand, there's King Devaratha. He rules with an iron fist. It's direct, it's obvious control. But his brother, Prince Aditya, he plays a much subtler and, you could say, more dangerous game. His power grows in the shadows, fueled by whispers and these fake smiles. Which one do you think is actually more powerful in the end?
And that's the whole point, isn't it? The biggest threat to Devaratha wasn't some foreign army at the gates, it was his own brother, right there in the same room. It's a political lesson that's absolutely timeless. The most dangerous cracks are always the ones you can't see, until it's way too late.
And so while all this family drama and betrayal is unfolding in the palace, what's happening outside? The river just keeps flowing. The valley is this constant, silent reminder that the story of these two brothers is just one tiny ripple in a very, very long stream.
But the story doesn't stop there. In fact, our next ruler is someone who just shatters the mold completely. We're about to meet a leader who was never meant to rule, but who would end up redefining what power even looked like in Kashmir.
So, meet Queen Yashomati. Now, in an era where a woman's authority was almost always behind the scenes, she was expected to be a figurehead, a regent controlled by ministers, after her husband died. But when the kingdom started to fracture, she just flat out refused to play the part they'd assigned her.
Just 3 simple words, but they were absolutely revolutionary. Imagine the scene, a court full of generals and ministers who all think they know better, and she just steps forward. This wasn't a suggestion, it was a declaration. It was the moment a queen became a commander.
And you know what? She wasn't just talk. She didn't give orders from the safety of the palace, she actually rode at the head of her army. The rebels were expecting a weak, scared woman. Instead, they came face to face with a brilliant strategist and a warrior who crushed the uprisings and restored order through sheer force of will.
But even here, at the absolute peak of Queen Yashomati's power, that constant refrain from the land itself comes back. Her strength was undeniable. Her reign was secured by steel. But that whisper is still there. No matter how strong the ruler, They are just a fleeting moment against the ancient backdrop of the mountains.
All right, on to our final act. After so much conflict, we finally get to a period of peace, of wisdom, of culture. But the title itself is a huge clue. A fleeting golden age. It tells you right away that even the best of times, well, they just don't last.
This guy, King Aryavarman, he seems like the ideal ruler, right? He gets his power through respect, not fear. He invests in knowledge and culture. He builds a society that's actually just and prosperous. And for a little while, it really feels like the cycle of violence has finally been broken. This is the peak.
But that makes you wonder, right? When a kingdom is totally secure and its people are happy, what danger could possibly be lurking just under the surface?
One single, devastating word. The danger isn't an invading army or some treacherous brother in the shadows. It's the quiet belief that the good times are just going to last forever. It's the softening that comes with success.
And here is the tragic flaw in his whole plan. Wisdom isn't hereditary. You can't pass it down like a crown. Jayavarman built a golden age, for sure, but he couldn't pass on the qualities that made it possible. He assumed his legacy was secure. And right there, in that assumption, the seeds of its decline were sown. The cycle is ready to begin all over again.
And so we're left with this big question at the end of it all. We've seen kings, queens, betrayers, and philosophers. Every single one of them is gone now. Their ambitions turned to dust. So what's left? What actually endures? Well, maybe it's the river, the mountains, the valley. Or maybe it's the story itself, being remembered and retold, just like this.